Hey guys, tonight we step into the soot-smudged world of Roman pottery, into a workshop that smells of singed olive oil, old terracotta, and a little too much damp wool. You're not here to admire museum pieces under glass. You're here at the start of a long, dusty shift. Your tunic's already sticking to your back, and the kiln hasn't even been lit yet. This is the kind of place where time crawls, where fingers are always stained red and clay gets into places it has no business being. You're surrounded by low humming voices, creaking wheels, and pots that are more than just pots, they're omens, symbols, sometimes scapegoats. You're here to learn what happens when something as simple as a jug handle goes wrong. And trust me, it does, frequently. Oh, and if you thought you'd spend tonight just glazing vases and telling jokes about amphorae, well, you probably won't survive this. But don't worry, no one's ever actually been sacrificed for a lopsided handle that we know of. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin the morning with clay under your fingernails before you've even had breakfast. The workshop is older than any single pot inside it. Brick walls hold in the heat like secrets, and the floor is a mosaic of cracks, boot prints, and years of dropped shards. You move quietly past the other workers, some of whom are already rolling out coils, throwing shapes on the wheel, or slapping clay into the press molds like they're swatting flies. Your job is not glamorous. You're the helper, which means you trudge back and forth with buckets of water, bundles of kindling, and trays full of half-dried pieces. But today, you're told to assist with handles, a cursed upgrade. If you believe the others, handles are tricky, not because they're hard to make, but because they're emotional. Roman potters had a quiet superstition about them. They were the part of the pot that people touched most often, the part that connected human hand to ceramic body. That made them sacred, vulnerable, and a little unsettling when they failed. You take a jug that's still leather hard and press its handle into place with a sloppy dollop of slip. As soon as you release it, crack it, tears clean off, just drops to the floor and rolls a bit, like it's embarrassed. You hear a slow inhale from behind you. It's Lentulus, the kiln master. His eyes narrow like he's seen a funeral. That one's unlucky now, he mutters, and motions toward a growing pile of similar failures behind the kiln wall. You think he's joking until you walk back there. There's a mound of broken handles, dozens, maybe more. Some still have bits of vessel attached. Others are just twisted like they tried to detach themselves on purpose. And you wonder, why not just recycle the clay? Well, some did. But in this workshop, once a handle broke off pre-firing, it was cursed. A bad omen. Reusing it might carry that curse into the next batch. Even the most rational potters had limits to their logic, and this was one of them. You hear one apprentice say that his older cousin once worked in a workshop where every broken handle was buried in a separate hole, and they whispered the name of a dead potter over each one to confuse the spirits. Another says he's heard of places where they just threw them into the Tiber and hoped the river gods didn't mind. Historians still argue whether these rituals were widespread superstitions or just local workshop quirks. But here, now, standing with red dust on your sandals and ash on your face, it's hard to believe this isn't serious business. You ask Lentulus why broken handles matter so much. He shrugs and says, because handles carry intention. Then he turns back to the kiln and leaves you with that unsettling phrase. You stare at your hands. They're shaking a little. Maybe it's the heat. Maybe it's something else. Behind you, the broken handle is still there, looking a bit like it's waiting to be dealt with. You bend down to pick up the broken handle. It's still warm from your touch. Barely dried, soft at the fracture. There's a temptation to just mash it back into the main pot and pretend it never happened. But you already know better. Instead, you do what every apprentice does. You hold it up like it might bite you, then glance around to make sure no one else is watching. And then you take the long walk behind the kiln. The space back there always feels a little colder despite the inferno burning just a few paces away. It's shadowed. dusty, lined with stacked firewood and old amphora crates. And in the very corner, just as Lentulus said, is the mound. You step closer. They're all handles. Some are thin and elegant, like they belong to decorative oil flasks. Others are thick and stubby, meant for heavy wine jugs. A few still have potter's stamps, tiny letters or symbols pressed into the clay like names on tombstones. You gently set yours down on the pile, and for a moment, it feels like something exhales. You tell yourself it's just kiln draft, but deep down, you know these pieces aren't just refuse. The older workers call them infausta manus. Unlucky hands. Not every workshop used the term, but some did. And even those that didn't still acted like broken handles were bad luck. Why? Because in Roman culture, the handle symbolized control. The part you grabbed, steered, held close. A pot without a handle was a burden. A pot with a failed handle, well, that was something even worse. You walk back to your station, quieter than before. You don't ask for another pot. Instead, you start helping Gaius, the glazer, with sweeping powder over finished pieces. He doesn't say much, just passes you a cracked bowl and raises an eyebrow. Handle trouble, he asks. You nod. He says. Better than dropping the base? At least the ghosts won't follow you home. You're not sure if he's joking. Later that afternoon, a merchant arrives from the harbor. He's loud, sunburnt, and sweating through his linen. He complains that half the jugs in his last shipment had hairline cracks right through the handles. He wants a refund, or at least fewer curses next time. Lentulus just gives him a nod and promises better inspection. But after the merchant leaves, Lentulus goes to the workbench, finds the mold used for that batch, and smashes it with a mallet. Doesn't even blink. No more from that one, he mutters. It pulls wrong. You and the other apprentices exchange glances. No one argues. Even if that mold had made perfect handles 90 times before, it had now crossed some invisible threshold. 1 failure, a warning. 2, a curse. Historians still argue whether Roman workshops truly believed in object curses or just used them as a way to enforce quality control, but many agree. Ritual disposal and symbolic destruction were common enough to suggest fear ran deeper than function. Back at your wheel, you try another jug. You shape it carefully. Attach the new handle like it's a sleeping snake. This one holds, for now, but still, you can't stop thinking about the one that didn't. The way it fell, the quiet sound it made on the floor, like it chose to leave. And that night, as the kiln roars and the stars blink above the rooftops, you pass by the pile again. Something in you says not to look too long. You do anyway. You head back behind the kiln again the next morning, this time on purpose. You say it's to gather extra wood, but really, your eyes flick straight to the pile. The broken handles haven't moved. Of course they haven't. They're just shards of clay. Still, you swear something's different, like there are more of them, or they're stacked higher, neater, like someone rearranged them while you slept. You crouch beside them, brushing dust from one with your sleeve. It's curved, wide-lipped, and still has a bit of the jug body clinging to it. You flip it over gently. There on the inside, someone has scratched a tiny mark, a triangle with a line through it. Not a potter's stamp. Something else. Something you're not supposed to see. You tuck that piece aside, just under a crate of kindling, and tell yourself you'll ask about it later. You don't, because Lentulus catches you lingering, and his eyes are sharp today. That's not your place, he says, voice soft but flint-edged. Unlucky handles are meant to stay put. You nod, mumble an apology, and return to the front. But the thought gnaws at you. See, you've started noticing just how many pots never even make it to firing. Not because they're misshapen. No, they look fine until the handle falls off, or cracks right before the kiln. And when that happens, no one argues. The piece is quietly taken away, broken into, and added to the pile. Some older potters say it's better to let the handle fall early. At least then the bad luck doesn't get cooked in. One mutters while shaping a new bowl. Once it's fired, it's permanent. Then it belongs to someone. Another chimes in, and it'll find someone to break. You're not sure what that means. But that afternoon, while helping sweep out the molding station, you hear a faint clink. One of the apprentices, Marcus, has dropped a jug. The body's intact, but the handle, Clean break. Everyone freezes. Even Lentulus goes still. Then, with a sigh, he motions for Marcus to follow him. They walk behind the kiln together. When Marcus returns, he's pale. He doesn't speak for the rest of the day. You think about asking him what happened, but something tells you not to. Instead, that evening, you sneak back yourself. There's the mound. Larger again? Definitely. And next to it, a small pile of bricks. Not kiln bricks, funerary bricks. Roman burial tile. The kind used to line tomb niches. Who put those there? Why? Historians still debate whether broken pottery was symbolically linked to death, or if these associations were just accidents of convenience. But in this workshop, it feels very much intentional. You take the triangle-marked handle from behind the crate and set it in your palm. It feels heavier than it should, like it's holding something. Memory, maybe, or warning. Just before you return to the others, you hear something behind the bricks, a whisper of movement. Could be a lizard, could be wind through a crack, could be. You don't wait to check. You don't sleep much that night. The handle with the triangle mark follows you into your dreams, rolling towards you again and again like it refuses to be left behind. You wake up twice, sweating through your tunic, and each time you check the corner of the room, just in case. By morning, you've convinced yourself it's just nerves, overwork, heat, maybe a bit of kiln smoke still stuck in your lungs. You drag yourself back to the workshop, where the potters are already halfway through the morning batch. Today, Lentulus puts you on stamp duty. Every finished vessel, once it's glazed, once it's dried, once it's been handled without cracking, gets a mark. A little stamp pressed into the clay near the base of the handle or on the bottom. It's usually just an initial or a workshop symbol. Yours is a crescent shape, half worn from use, made from bronze and mounted on a wooden peg. You go to work, pressing the stamp into soft clay before the pots are moved to the drying shelf. It's not hard work, but it's precise. Each stamp has to be even, readable, and most importantly, not on a cursed handle. You ask Gaius what happens if someone stamps a pot that's already been marked unlucky. He stiffens. That happened once. He says, old Terentius did it. Didn't check the list. Handle had cracked and been re-glued. He thought it was fine. Fired it. Delivered it to a client in Ostia. You pause. What happened? The client's villa caught fire 3 days later. They pulled that jug from the rubble, still whole, not even blackened. You wait. He buried it in a temple courtyard. Some minor household god said he wouldn't touch another Roman pot unless he saw it made himself. You blink. And Terentius. Gaius shrugs. He left, said he felt watched. Historians still argue whether Roman stamps served purely commercial purposes or whether they carried legal and spiritual significance. Some think potters used them like seals, personal guarantees of honor. Others suspect they also acted as protections, small charms pressed into place. You start checking every handle twice, and then, just before midday, you find a handle with 2 stamps, one on the base and another inside the loop, a place no one ever marks. The inner one, it's that same triangle. The potter next to you leans in. That mark again. He whispers, you've seen it. You nod slowly. That's not ours. He mutters, that's from the old shop. The old shop. He glances toward the far wall, toward a boarded-up door you always thought led to storage. They used to throw pots there, before the fire. Before they bricked it up, you glance at the triangle again, now imprinted into your fingertip from holding the stamp too tightly. Back behind the kiln, the handle pile waits. Later, when everyone's distracted, you go to the far wall, tap the boards. Dry wood, faint breeze through a crack. You swear you hear a clink from inside. And this time, you don't go in. You just stand there, breathing the dust, remembering the stamp, wondering who still uses it, and why it only ever shows up on broken handles. You try not to think about the triangle mark again. You try, but that night, you dream of pottery wheels spinning on their own, of amphorae without necks, of a voice whispering, it broke because it was meant to. You wake up with dry lips and red dust on your sheets. That wasn't there the night before. Back in the workshop, Lentulus puts you with the apprentices. He says it's time you learned how to actually shape handles, not just carry the ones that fall off. They give you a bench near the west window. You knead clay into fat coils, press one end onto the jug's shoulder, and curve the other down in that satisfying sweep. It's rhythmic, almost calming, almost. That's when you meet Sylvanus. He's barely older than you, but something about him feels frayed. He works fast, too fast, and his eyes flick from handle to handle like he's watching for something that doesn't want to be seen. "You're new to handles," he says, without looking up. "Just started." You answer, smoothing a loop into place. He makes a face. "Be careful. Don't let them get into your head." You raise an eyebrow. "They're handles." He says. You think that now, Sylvanus has a story for everything. Like the time he shaped a perfect jar, fired it clean, only to find a thumbprint embedded inside the glaze one that didn't match anyone in the workshop. Or the story about a cursed batch of roof tiles that broke in the same spot every time, until they realized the clay had been dug from a plot where a stray dog had died. He tells you all this with the tone of someone reciting weather reports. Flat, factual, tired. "You know about the pile?" You ask. He nods. "Been growing faster lately. Why don't we just toss the bad ones out?" Sylvanus stops shaping. He meets your eyes. "Because the pile isn't for trash," he says. "It's for containment." That evening, you watch him whisper to a handle before attaching it. Just a soft mutter. You can't make out the words, but his lips move the same way each time. You try it once. As a joke, you lean in. Whisper, "Stay on, please," to a damp coil. It stays. The next one falls clean off. You don't joke again. Later, during cleanup, Sylvanus says, "You ever been to the pit?" You pause. "The refuse pit, where the shards go." He shakes his head. "No, the pit, the moon one." You stare at him like he's cracked his own base. "Full moon only." He continues. You go out behind the kiln, past the pine tree with the split bark. There's a ring of stones. That's where they bury the worst ones. The ones that fell 3 times, or cracked after firing. The ones with the mark. You laugh nervously. "You mean the triangle?" He goes quiet. "How do you know about that?" he asks. You regret saying anything. Historians still debate the line between superstition and system among Roman laborers, especially in manual trades like pottery. Some argue it was just folklore. Others point out how often myths and daily craft overlapped, shaping even the smallest habits. You glance out the window. The moon is rising, and somewhere, behind the kiln, the shard pit waits. The moon is full. It hangs low and yellow above the tile roofs like an old coin left out too long in the rain. You don't plan to go. You really don't. But your feet start moving sometime after dinner. Almost like the clay dust in your sandals remembers something your brain has tried to forget. You slip out past the last glowing embers of the kiln, past the stacked amphorae still warm to the touch, past Sylvanus, who nods once without a word as you pass. You find the pine tree easily. Its bark split down the middle like a cracked handle. From there, a narrow footpath winds between the scrub brush. The cicadas hush as you approach, and then you see them, the stones. A rough circle, maybe waist-high in diameter. Nothing fancy, just a loose collection of river stones placed in a ring so old the moss has started using it as furniture. But when you get close, you see what lies in the center. Shards, handles, mostly. Some fresh, others sun-bleached and soft with time. They're arranged in a loose spiral, like they were meant to face the sky. Some have scratches. A few are fused together. Impossible shapes that could never have come from a sane kiln. You kneel. The ground smells of baked earth and cold iron. And beneath the top layer, you see what looks like an unfired coil. Still soft, still red. You nudge it with a stick. It twitches. No, that's not possible. You step back fast, heart hammering. Your foot strikes something solid. You look down. A broken jug neck. And inside it, a handle with the triangle mark. Of course, historians still argue whether certain Roman workshops practiced informal forms of sympathetic magic ritual behaviors, not sanctioned by religion, but performed religiously all the same. This pit, this is one of those behaviors. It's not in any text, not in any museum display, but it feels real. You turn to go and realize you're not alone. A figure stands near the pine tree, small, hooded, holding something. You freeze. Then you blink and it's gone. No rustle, no footprints, just silence. You run, not far, just enough to get back to the warmth of the kiln wall, where the smoke still clings to the bricks and someone is singing a tuneless lullaby from the dormitory. You don't tell anyone. But the next day, Sylvanus hands you a pot with no handle at all. For dry goods. He says, no lifting. You nod, and silently. You wonder if he's giving you a choice. That evening, another apprentice, Leontius, drops a batch of unglazed cups, all handle first. They shatter like glass. Lentulus just sighs and starts sweeping. But when you pass by the shard pile later, you notice something new. A clay tablet, half buried among the rubble, inscribed with that same triangle, except this time it has an eye carved in the center. You carry the tablet in your apron pocket for the rest of the day, pretending not to feel its weight. It's not heavy in the physical sense, it's barely larger than your palm, but it hums with an odd presence, like the clay never fully dried, or like it doesn't want to. No one notices you slip it into your sleeve, or if they do, they pretend not to. That evening, the kiln glows like a furnace in a myth. Someone tosses in dried olive branches for luck. Lentulus doesn't stop them. He just watches the flames rise higher than usual and says, hope that's enough. You ask Sylvanus about the eye, about the triangle, about what it means. He looks tired. That's Fortunata's mark, he mutters, barely audible over the scraping of tools, the goddess of luck or misfortune, depending how she wakes up. You raise your eyebrows. I thought she was just for dice games and coin tosses. Sylvanus snorts. She's in everything that breaks, every seam, every crack, especially in clay. You remember the handle pile? The spiral in the pit, the twitching coil. So what do we do with this? You ask, showing him the tablet. He stares for a long time, then says, you deliver it. To who? To her. You think he's joking? But later, you're sent on an errand, a real one. Supposedly carry a glazed bowl and a jug of wine up to a shrine near the edge of town. Fortunata's temple. It's a small structure, more like a public nook than a temple, tucked between two shops, with ivy-covered columns and wind chimes made of old bronze spoons. You've passed it before and never noticed the tiny statue inside a woman with one hand open and one turned away, like she's flipping a coin that never lands. You step inside. The wine and bowl go on the offering table, and the tablet. You hesitate, then place it gently at the base of her feet. You don't say anything, but something tells you that was enough. Outside, the wind shifts. You could swear you hear the chimes ringing in a pattern 3 notes, then 1, then silence. Historians still debate how seriously everyday Romans took their household and trade deities. Fortunata was never part of the major pantheon, but her shrines showed up everywhere in kitchens, in workshops, even carved into sewer bricks. They prayed to her not for grand blessings, but for one more day without catastrophe. You walk back slowly. The tablet stays behind, but you swear your apron pocket still feels full. That night, you dream again, only this time, the handle doesn't fall off. It grows longer, curves into a spiral, then splits in two, then opens into a mouth, and inside, another triangle, another eye, watching you. Morning arrives like damp wool. Your eyes are gritty, your arms sore, but the real weight is in your ribs, something left over from the dream. You can still feel the mouth-shaped handle curling in the dark, and that eye, that impossible, silent eye. You tell yourself it was just sleep. You tell yourself that a tablet doesn't watch. But when you reach into your apron pocket out of habit, there's still a faint indentation where it had rested, like clay memory burned into cloth. Back in the workshop, the mood is off. The merchant from Ostia is back, not sunburned this time, pale and damp and shivering, in a too clean tunic. He demands to speak with Lentulus alone. The conversation happens behind the mold press, in hushed Latin too quick to follow, but you catch a few fragments. Same break again. Jug still unbroken, but everything else. Shattered plates. No reason. Wishiates. Asked a priest. He said it's an object curse. Lentulus says nothing, just sends the man off with 2 new pots and a handful of coin he doesn't have. You return to your wheel and try to focus, but your fingers keep slipping. The coil won't center. The clay feels wrong today, too slick, too warm, almost like skin. Sylvanus leans over your shoulder, still dreaming. He asks, too casually. You nod. He sighs, yeah, me too. You pause. What about the ones that cracked in transit? He says, eyes on the horizon. The ones that came back, That catches your breath. Handles aren't supposed to break after they're fired. He continues, they're supposed to be safe by then, but I think sometimes the break waits. It waits until the pot has traveled far enough, until someone else touches it. Then it splits and the curse moves forward. You glance at the jug you just finished. Perfect curve, smooth base, handle tight as a drum. You still don't trust it. Sylvanus walks away before you can say more. Later, you help with loading a new shipment. Dozens of jars packed into straw and baskets, marked for the harbor. You lift one and feel it shift in your grip. Not crack, not fall, just shift. Like the weight changed mid-air, you whisper, "Don't you dare," and set it down. It holds, but the merchant nearby sees your face. Bad one. He asks. You shake your head. Maybe. He leans in. My uncle used to say if a handle broke on the road, you didn't fix it. You left it by the path. Better to lose the pot than carry the bad luck to the next town. Historians still argue whether this was real practice or just regional folklore, but dozens of lone, handleless jugs have been found along Roman trade routes, often arranged carefully, sometimes buried with stones inside. You finish your shift quietly, and that night, for reasons you can't name, you find yourself back at the refuse pit. You bring nothing, but there's something waiting for you. A new handle. Half buried, slick with dew. It's stamped with the triangle, but no eye this time. Just a faint, smudged curve beneath it, like a mouth, smiling. You don't take the smiling handle home. You leave it right there in the pit, half sunken, half grinning like it knows something you don't. The smile isn't carved, not really. It's just a crack in the slip glaze, but it curves too neatly, too deliberately. You back away, but the next morning, the workshop sends you on another errand, this time to the Temple of Fortunata. Again, another delivery. You ask. No, Lentulus says, not looking up. You're to offer thanks. For what? He pauses, then mutters, because nothing exploded yesterday. Reasonable enough. You carry a small oil lamp in a cracked bowl and a string of dried olive pit's odd offerings. But someone said Fortunata prefers leftovers. The streets are quieter than usual. A breeze runs through the cloth awnings and makes the wheat chaff scatter in strange spirals across the stone. When you reach the temple again, it looks different. Not physically. Same ivy, same spoons clinking in the breeze, same statue with her half-turned palms, but the space feels heavier, like it's waiting. You step inside, set down the bowl, light the lamp. The wick curls up in a perfect flame that dances but doesn't flicker, and just as you're about to leave, your foot kicks something. A pot shard, just the handle, rolled into the corner like a sleeping cat. You don't want to look, but of course you do. It's stamped. You already know what you'll see. The triangle, the eye, and beneath it, a new symbol, a dot and a slash, a mark used by merchants to track broken inventory. Someone's been cataloging the unlucky handles. You carry it back to the workshop. Sylvanus takes one look and grimaces. That's from the port batch. You nod. We buried those. He adds. You nod again. He stares. So why is it back? You don't answer. Instead, you start noticing the nails. Not metaphorical ones. Actual nails. Bent iron pegs hammered into the beams around the workshop. You never paid them attention before, but now they seem too deliberate. You ask Gaius about them. He shrugs. For hanging aprons. You point out there are no aprons hanging. He changes the subject. Later, after the last jug is glazed, you see Lentulus standing by the kiln, staring at the fire. He doesn't blink, doesn't even seem to breathe. You ask, softly, what are the nails for? He answers without turning. To hold the luck in place. Does it work? No. You nod and walk away. Historians still debate whether Romans believed misfortune could be anchored, physically pinned to a place with nails, charms, or iron hooks. But archaeological digs have found iron nails embedded in kilns, ovens, even beneath floor mosaics. Not for construction, for containment. You sleep badly again. In your dreams, the temple statue turns toward you. Her hand is open. Inside it rests a single clay handle, stamped, fired, and cracked right down the middle. You wake up already tired, the kind of tired that seeps into your knees before your feet hit the floor. You tell yourself it's just the kiln smoke, Or the dreams, or the fact that you keep waking up with bits of red clay under your nails you swear you didn't touch. You're not alone in it. By mid-morning, the workshop feels heavier, not busier, just slower. Everyone moves like the air is thicker. Sylvanus walks in late, hands shaking slightly. Gaius drops a bowl and doesn't curse. Even Lentulus seems quiet. You realize there's no singing today, no idle chatter, no clinking of tools. Something's changed. You're tasked with prepping drying racks. Simple enough, carry the newly shaped pots to the warm corner near the kiln and lay them gently on straw mats. But as you lift one amphorae, your fingers graze something inside the rim. You tip it slightly. There, pressed just beneath the handle. Join nearly hidden is another mark. Not the triangle, not the eye. A crack. Not a real crack etched to look like one. On purpose, a fake flaw. You show Sylvanus. He inhales through his teeth. That's a decoy. A what? Some potters carve fake cracks to throw off the bad luck. Fool the spirits into thinking it's already broken. You blink. Does that work? He shrugs. If it didn't, we'd stop doing it. You check the other pots. 3 more decoys. And 1 real crack. You leave the real one aside. Quietly, no one questions it. Later, you're near the back of the workshop. When you hear a soft sound, a scratch, a shuffle, you follow it past the kiln, past the pile, past the pine. It leads you to the old door, the one that was boarded up, except now one of the boards is loose. Just one. You lean close, peer through the gap. Inside, it's dark, too dark, but something moves, a slow sway, like something hanging or something breathing. You step back, fast, and that's when you see it. A handle nailed to the lintel above the door, fired, stamped, cracked, mounted like a warning or a seal. You ask Lentulus about the door. He doesn't answer right away. Then, finally, that's where we fired the ones that never should have been made. Why is it sealed? He exhales. Because sometimes, even after firing, they still move. Historians still argue whether certain Roman kiln sites were treated as spiritually dangerous taboo zones for misfired or malformed pottery. Some think it was just fire safety. Others suspect rituals meant to contain more than heat. You don't sleep that night, not even badly. You just lie there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sound of clay cooling behind your eyelids. Somewhere, in the dark corner of the workshop, something shifts, and somewhere deeper, in your bones maybe, a single shard rolls into place. There's one pot you've never touched. It sits on a shelf above the tool bench, behind a curtain of hanging cords no one ever seems to use. You noticed it on your first week but never asked. You didn't have to. Every apprentice avoids it. Not by rule, by instinct. It's sealed with wax, not with a lid. Wax, poured thick and unbroken, like someone was afraid it might try to open itself. The pot is blackened from fire, or age, or maybe both. The handle is intact but barely. A hairline crack runs along its curve, like a scar that never healed. You catch yourself staring at it too long during breaks. So one day, after everyone else is at lunch, you reach up, you touch it. It's colder than it should be. Even the air around it feels a little off, like it hums at a lower frequency than the rest of the world. Your fingers rest just below the handle join, where the slip has pooled in a warped drip. And there it is, the triangle, but this one has been scratched out. No eye, no slash, just a furious series of gouges, like someone tried to erase the past with a nail. You step back. Lentulus appears behind you without sound. Don't touch that one. You freeze. What is it? He hesitates, then says, the last pot Terentius ever fired. Your stomach drops. You remember the name, the one Sylvanus mentioned, the potter who stamped the cursed handle and vanished. It came back, Lentulus says. Months after he left, a boy found it in a ditch near the harbor, still sealed, still warm. You blink. That's not possible. He looks at you. Exactly. You ask what's inside. He doesn't answer. He just moves the cords back in place and mutters, some things break before they're ever made. Historians still debate whether Roman potters practice forms of ritual entombment, sealing vessels as a way of containing unwanted forces. Most scholarly consensus labels it folklore, but this pot silent, wax sealed, and cracked before use doesn't feel like a product. it feels like a warning. That night, the kiln breathes smoke all the way to your cot. You dream again, but not of handles this time. You dream of wax melting, of something inside turning, slow and wide-eyed. And in the silence after the flame gutters out, a voice says, "You should have left the seal alone." You don't go near the sealed pot again. But now, you see it everywhere. In the way people glance over their shoulders before loading the kiln, in how Gaius double-checks every stamp, in the silence that settles whenever the wind shifts through the back wall of the workshop, the air changes. Clay dust hangs longer, and always you feel something just behind your spine. So when Lentulus sends you to retrieve tools from the back storage, you go reluctantly. It's a room you rarely visit, narrow, low-ceilinged, with shelves full of odd-shaped molds, forgotten projects, and more broken tiles than whole ones. You're halfway through searching for a copper trowel when your foot hits something hollow. You kneel. A thin wooden panel is pulled slightly away from the wall, just enough space to see a gap. You lean in. Behind the wall is another room, smaller and hidden. You slip through the panel before you think better of it. It's dark, smells of dust, beeswax, and scorched iron. You light a small oil lamp and step forward. The room is lined with narrow benches, each one scattered with fragments of handles. But these are different. They've been shaved down, smoothed, polished until their stamps are gone, filed to blur every triangle, every mark, every flaw. In the center, a single table, a pot rests there, still wet, still forming, but its handle is already attached bent at an unnatural angle, almost as if it's recoiling. And next to it, a bundle of stamps, dozens, all different. None of them the crescent you've used. This is where the old potter worked. The one they don't talk about. The handle shaver. You hear something shift behind you. You turn fast, lamp flickering. Nothing. But you notice a name etched into the wall, carved so deep the plaster puckered around it. Terentius. You don't move. You can't, because suddenly, the unfinished pot on the table cracks loud and sharp. The handle doesn't fall off. It just splits, a perfect line. Inside the crack, a scrap of waxed paper, folded, pressed into the clay. You open it. 3 shapes, a triangle, an eye, and the outline of a mouth, open. Below them, a single line in Latin. Quod fractum est. Remain it. What is broken remains. Historians still argue whether some potters developed personal systems of symbols and countersymbols, an early form of coded superstition meant to outwit perceived spiritual forces. This hidden room, it's not just a workshop, it's a confession. You step backward. Quiet. Careful. You leave everything exactly as it was, except the door. You close that behind you. And this time, you slide a brick in front of the panel, not to trap anything in, to keep yourself out. That night, the fire in the kiln doesn't go out, it just burns low. And deep inside, the air whistles softly, like breath through broken clay. The next day, everything is too quiet. The usual clatter of jars, the shouting over slipped coils, the rhythm of the wheel, it's all muffled. Like the whole workshop is holding its breath. Even Lentulus speaks in half volume, like someone might hear who shouldn't. You spend the morning checking for cracks. You've done it before, of course, but now you see them not just as flaws, but as messages. Some jagged, some curved, some forming near identical patterns, as if shaped by something intentional. You pause at one, a large storage jar, fresh from firing. Its handle is perfect, but just below the lip. There's a branching fracture that curls in 3 directions. You trace it with your thumb. It almost looks like a tree, or lightning, or a hand. You ask Silvanus if anyone else has noticed the shapes. He doesn't answer right away. Then, some of us do. Most pretend not to. You press. Why? He squints toward the kiln. Because once you see them, they see you back. You don't ask what they are. You don't want to know. Still, your curiosity itches. You start checking more pots ones from older batches, ones already packed for shipping. You find more cracks, more spirals, one that curls inward like a snail shell, ending in a perfect dot. And then, finally, one with something impossible. Inside the fracture line, not etched, not carved, but somehow present. You see letters, barely, almost like shadows under the glaze. Latin, blurred and crumbling. Read it. Per manum. It returns. Through the hand, you feel sick. Historians still debate whether certain Roman tradespeople practiced forms of fracture reading, interpreting breaks in materials as omens, curses, or divine communication. In glasswork, yes. In animal bones, certainly. But in pottery, it was always speculative. You don't think so anymore. You report the cracked pot to Lentulus. He doesn't even look at it. Take it to the pit, he says. You hesitate. But it's already fired? He nods once. Exactly. You carry it out at dusk, arms aching from the weight, and place it gently at the center of the shard spiral. You don't speak. You don't breathe. You just set it down. And as you do, the wind picks up quick, sharp, dry. It slices through your tunic and makes the pine tree groan behind you. The fracture in the pot winks, just for a second, just enough to break you. You run, but in the corner of your vision, you swear you see a shape move not toward you, out of the pot, and up. You don't remember running back, just the sound of sandals slapping hard-packed clay, the taste of smoke in your mouth, and the image burned into your eyelids, something slipping upward from the pot's fracture like steam that never cools. You burst into the workshop, breathless, wild-eyed. Silvanus is there. He doesn't ask what happened. He just nods like he already knows. He takes you to the corner of the kiln where the unused clay bins are kept. You crouch behind them, heart still hammering, and he hands you a piece of unfired terracotta smooth, shaped like a handle, except it's not attached to anything. Keep this, he says. You frown. It's nothing. It's a tether, he says. As long as you choose the handle, it can't choose you. You don't ask what that means. Not really. You just hold it tight, the way a child clutches a pebble in a storm. Later that night, Lentulus gathers everyone. There's no ceremony, just a few words. We're sealing the old kiln. You all know which one. The boarded-up door, the one with the cracked handle nailed to the lintel, the one you open. He doesn't say why. He doesn't have to. 3 apprentices carry stones. Another pours mortar. Silvanus mixes lime until his hands are raw. You watch in silence as the last gap is filled. The firelight dances across the fresh brick, still damp and uneven, but final. You think it's over, until someone brings forward the pot from the tool shelf. That pot, the wax-sealed one, the one with the triangle gouged out. Lentulus says nothing, just holds it in both hands, walks to the center of the courtyard, and smashes it hard against the stone. The wax splatters, but the pot doesn't break. Not completely. It cracks. One clean, surgical line, right through the handle. Inside, there's nothing. No ashes, no contents, just a perfect void. And on the interior surface, etched so shallow it barely exists, are 5 letters. Manus, hand. Historians still argue whether the Latin manus in this context meant the hand of fate, the hand of man, or something more ritualistic like a spiritual force that moved through the hands of craftsmen. Here, now, with the cracked pot lying in the moonlight, it feels like all of those at once. Everyone disperses without a word. No one sweeps the shards. The next morning, there's a silence in the air so clean it almost whistles. Birds return to the rafters. Gaius hums while glazing again. Someone tells a joke about a crooked urn. And for once, nothing cracks. You tuck the handle Silvanus gave you into your belt. You carry it everywhere now. And when no one is looking, you whisper to it, just in case. You never stop checking the handles. Even weeks later when the sun returns, when the kiln burns clean, when no one whispers about cracks in the dark, you still press your thumb along every curve, every join. You tilt the pots under the light, looking for lines that shouldn't be there. And when you find one, even if it's faint as a wrinkle, you set that pot aside. Some part of you still believes they speak. You're not alone in it. Silvanus keeps a quiet tally on the back of a wall beam. Tiny scratched marks for every broken handle. The number hasn't grown in days, but one morning, while you're helping load the delivery cart, you spot a pot with a new stamp. Not a triangle, not an eye, something else. A circle. Perfect. Clean. Unblemished. You ask Gaius. He shrugs. Said it came from a sister workshop downriver. You nod, but you notice something odd. The handle is too perfect. Like it was never attached, just grown from the body. Seamless. That night, the dreams come back, but they're quieter. No broken mouths, no rising steam. Just silence. A soft silence. Like sleeping under blankets warm from the sun. Like hands pressing clay not with force, but care. And in the center of it all, a single handle still red, still damp, floating, waiting. You reach for it, and this time, it doesn't fall, it rests in your palm. And you hear a voice not frightening, not loud, just steady. You are the maker now. You wake before dawn, fingers still curled, like you're holding something. But they're empty. The workshop feels normal, almost light. Lentulus tells you to teach the new apprentice how to shape handles. He smiles as he says it, and for once, it doesn't feel like a warning. You guide the younger boy's hands. You help him smooth the curve. You whisper, almost without meaning to, "Stay on, please." The handle holds. You don't throw away the old superstitions. You just carry them better now. And the little piece of clay Sylvanus gave you, you press it into this base of your own pot. Your first full piece, start to finish. It doesn't crack. Not once. Historians may never agree on whether unlucky handles carried curses or whether potters simply needed something to blame when the world spun sideways. But in your hands, in your sweat, in the fire and breath of red dust and oil smoke, you've learned one thing. What is broken can remain, but what's shaped with care that might just stay whole, even if it's only for a little while. The heat of the kiln fades. The smoke drifts out into a quiet Roman dusk. You're no longer shaping pots, just watching the silhouettes of finished ones cool along the racks, their handles unbroken, their bodies humming faint warmth into the floor beneath you. You breathe slower now. The dust in your lungs has settled. Your palms are no longer slick with clay, but steady, gentle, resting. The shards behind the kiln lie still tonight, not buried, not screaming, just quiet, part of the earth again. And even the wax-sealed urn on the shelf, long broken, seems like less of a threat and more of a memory something left behind. Like an old superstition whispered by workers long gone. Outside, the wind picks up slightly. It rustles through the pine tree, brushes the corners of the workshop. No cries, no cracking. Just soft wind and the sound of sandals brushing gravel as another day ends in peace. The fire has gone out, and all that remains are the hands that shaped, and the vessels that held, and the breath of those who dared whisper to clay, "Sleep now. Let the cracks close. Let the kiln cool. You're safe here."